James at 16 will not be presented this evening, but will return next week at its regular time. Stay tuned now for a special 2-hour What Really Happened to the Class of 65.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
That's, me kind of doing a very light take on the version of Batman I was raised by, which is sort of post Neal Adams take, which he was doing the year I was born. Neal Adams was redefining the character kind of in the cracks and corners of DC when he was first a cover artist on a lot of the Batman books in the late 60s, and then once they gave him sort of the run of the place, his look he kind of exaggerated even more with the lighting and the grandeur, the way he would exaggerate the figure form, the length of the ears, the length of the cape. A lot of it was just sort of aesthetics. He wasn't really changing the costume per se. I tried to illustrate what Adams did with a sense of maybe somewhat photo exacting kind of take on it, while also kind of avoiding some of the comic book tropes of the glowing white eyes, which I was always having a problem with as a kid, thinking about like how the mask is pretty much on his face like it's makeup. Like it's as close to the skin as you can get the way it was drawn by everybody, Adams included. And if that's the case, there's no room to hide the eyelashes for the human being wearing this mask, so basically just his natural eyes showing, but you can hide that in shadow.
Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Ed Piskor is one of those guys that I am always happy to talk to, much like his cartoonist kayfabe partner, Jimmy Rugg. I'll zoom in on that on the omnibus there.
I'm just trying to catch the light, man, and communicate with my brethren through almost Morse code or something.
You're signaling ships from the lighthouse. I love it.
Straight up.
This is a reflective cover, man. But seriously, man, you and Jim Rugg, you guys are the kind of comic creators that it's always like, what are they going to do next? And what makes them tick in making the comics that are so idiosyncratic to their personas? And truly, man, I love that about both of you guys. So welcome to Word Balloon, Ed Piskor.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. It's been a while, and I appreciate you having me. It's almost past my bedtime, to be honest, man. But I decided to drink a little caffeine and hang out a little late.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I did not know that you keep farmers' hours. I didn't realize that. I figured a guy like you that makes stuff like Hip Hop Family Tree that you're part of the nightlife.
Used to be, man. Like this is a post-COVID development. Whenever the pandemic was going down, like I didn't know about ordering groceries or anything. So like my motivation was I got to be the first guy at the grocery store. So I started waking up at 5 a.m. and then I started to enjoy the daylight hours, man. So I go to sleep at like 9. Everybody makes fun of me because at around this time right now I would be putting out an Instagram story showing off whatever I'm reading in bed. And everybody's like, dude, you're reading in bed at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's like, dude, I am snoring by 9.
That's amazing. Well, I appreciate you staying up for me. Thank you. That's good. Friday the 13th. I didn't even think of that until I saw someone else reference it. It's like, all right, that's interesting timing for us. This is good. So again, you held up the big volume there because I didn't have the cover for the new thing. I'm going to zoom in at Hip Hop Family Tree, the omnibus. So this is this crowdfunding, and what are you doing with this thing?
No crowdfunding, man. I'm holding out till the very last minute to start playing that game. This is coming from Fantagraphics. It's the 10-year anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree, and you cannot take for granted that that your baby, which is my books, that my baby gets to live to be 10 years old. That is an honor. So many books, they come, they go. We look at so many books that get one print run, and that print run might be a couple of thousand, and then they're masterful comics, they go away. But this comic has endured, and it was thanks to something like maybe even a Facebook memory that earlier this year that reminded me that, holy crap, the first volume came out in December of 2013. We're at the 10-year anniversary. Hit up the guys at Fantagraphics. Hey man, can we do something fly for the 10-year anniversary? And they were completely on board. And I got to thank the audience already. We've been banging the drum on kayfabe very regularly, and dealing with the final order cutoff stuff with Diamond, yada yada. We got the numbers back, and this print run is disappearing. So I'm very thankful to everybody. The book isn't even out yet. As of this stream, we're a week away.
Okay. Cool.
Well, no, like it's Tuesday, Wednesday is when the book officially comes out.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But about 75% of this print run is accounted for. So if people are interested, man, this is the best book I ever made. Scoop it the hell up.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. No, whoop. Do it again. There you go, buddy. Excellent. Fantastic. Yeah, look how big that is. Jesus Christ. Ed, are you is everything in there? I mean, obviously the strips are in there, the covers and all the other various
For sure. We stripped out in the original volumes. I had a bunch of friends doing pinups, and that would have just added to the heft. And we wanted to try to keep it manageable for people. It's a big book, but it still is comfortable in the hand. You could read it in bed. You know how some of those, like the Uber Alice edition of Stray Bullets, that's a wieldy book, man. And this one could still, as Neil Gaiman says, stun a burglar.
Very good.
If you want to crack them upside the head or whatever. But we decided to just put all of my shit in here. So it's every cover I ever drew, all the splash pages, every sort of ancillary piece of art that I did outside of the original 4 volumes. I drew a bunch of art. I spent a chunk of this year in February, March, drawing a whole bunch of new stuff and just ushering this book along so that we can make it happen. And best book I ever made. Super stoked on it. And I'm really glad that everybody's showing up in a big way to support it.
Timing is everything. I really think, obviously, there's a fondness for the history of hip hop anyway, and even was 10 years ago. But I think that's endured. And God, Ed, I feel like one of those old farts that, as much as I appreciate hip hop, but it really wasn't my era. That it seems like traditional rock when it comes to radio is disappearing. Kind of like the big band music of my father's was disappearing from mainstream broadcasting, and you mostly get hip hop and the successive formats from hip hop that have come from that, and I'm cool with it. That's all right. God bless everybody, man. Everybody deserves their era, but you have really chronicled this era in such detail. The amount of interviews you did. How many have you ever counted? How many interviews you did to make this thing?
No, I talked to a lot of people. The first volume was done completely with found sources because nobody knew me or gave a shit. But then that first book comes out, and then it caught fire. It really did. And then that's when I started to get that access. But I would have been 30, 31, maybe 29 whenever I was doing it. It was the perfect age because I developed far more critical thinking because a lot of the people that I was dealing with, they were telling me some hyperbolic stories that I just absolutely know I would have 100% believed if I was 21 years old or something, just getting in the game, talking to my favorite rappers. So it all worked out perfectly, man. I was the exact right age to be making the comic, to have a little bit of critical awareness, to have the balls to say, is there anybody else on this planet of 7 billion people who could corroborate what you just told me? So it's a lot of fond memories with this book. Looking back, I think this rings true to a lot of cartoonists. But when I look at those old pages, it's like a very personal kind of scrapbook in a way that nobody can decipher but myself, because I could look at those pages and I remember the interesting things that happened that day whenever I was drawing these pages. It's all kind of connected. Like as a kid, I was one of those kids that would be drawing in class and getting yelled at by the teacher because they thought I wasn't paying attention. And maybe even at the time I thought I was being naughty or something, but really like tying the hand action, the wrist action with what I'm hearing, it roots it. It would root, what the teacher said. It's hard to explain. And certainly the teachers did not understand that nor appreciate it. But with that said, man, I look at these old pages and it's like, holy crap. I remember the ceiling leaked when I was working on this one because of a blizzard that piled up on the flat ceiling and stuff like on the flat roof. All kinds of weird shit like that.
Sure. Jesus. Ed, I feel a kinship to cartoonists like yourself with what I'm doing with Word Balloon, because it is, this handmade thing that I created. And have you ever had a conversation with the hip hop people? I'm sure you feel that same way with this movement of music and the way that it came about, because it was very handmade as well. Any thoughts to that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly DIY, and we're talking about the version of rap music and hip hop that I'm into. It's impossible to lump it all together. So in the same way as you described the rock stuff going out, like the big bands or whatever, like my version of hip hop has gone out with the kids' version of hip hop, which is the culture as a whole. It's a youth culture in a lot of ways, and that's how it's been able to endure for 50 years, because it just always morphs and changes. And it's about being updated and kind of being with the latest fashions and trends and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's always going to kind of morph and take the shape of the young new generation. Like I don't know that we could say that about rock and roll and things like that. It seems like they had their day in the sun. It was a thing. And you could look at Zeppelin or something and just like root them into a period of time. But and I suppose you could do that with rappers over the course of history. But it just, I remember like the worst thing that a rapper could do back in the day when I was growing up was mention the year in their song, because there was the one Ice Cube song, 1993, he says, but he holds up a 2 and then they overdub the 3 because the song came out in 92, but the video came out in 93 and they had to try to keep it contemporary because even shit that was 6 months old was considered played out. So the comic that I did before Hip Hop Family Tree was WYSIWYG, and that's about computer hackers, the history of hacker culture. And as I was learning more and more about hacker culture, which I was absorbing these radio programs and podcasts while I was working with Harvey Piskor, I realized that hackers, their mindset is not far from the cartoonist mindset. It's just that the energy is split in different ways. Their curiosities go a different way than mine. Because comics is an endless pursuit. Like I'm spending my entire life trying to unpack comics and understand it. And the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And hip hop is that same way. It's a hacker practice. And it's the rap music and hip hop that I dig is a practice of taking, these old found materials, found resources, and turning them into something new, which absolutely is that's a hacker practice. And the kind of comics that I make are kind of a postmodern aesthetic where I am very happy. You see the long boxes over here, but you don't see the long boxes over here that kind of match that amount. And then in the other room, the long boxes that match both of these. And then the back room, which is where all the kayfabe people send us stuff. And that's just my 50%. Jimmy has 50% that we flip a coin whenever that material comes. I'm indoctrinated in comics, so I make no apologies about stealing a Gene Colan hand turning the doorknob because I can't conceptualize a better hand turning a doorknob than he can or something like that. That's just an example. I haven't cribbed him yet, but he does draw a very good hand turning a doorknob, and he never does the same one twice. If you look at those Tomb of Draculas. We could go tangents all day, John. We really can.
Ed, as you know, tangents are my language as well, and I welcome it. And I do have kind of a stack of kayfabe references as far as previous episodes that I want to get into. Man, great comments from the peeps. Warren Drummond says, if only young rappers had bars. Every word is so spaced out. Last year, I took my kid to see Wu-Tang, Nas, Busta with LL, Redman, and Mary J. Blige as special guests, and his head exploded. And he's a young rap artist. Nice comment from Mr. Monarch, Kayfabe Effect, always ready to listen to Master. Oh, that's nice. I know Ed's a master, but that's nice you include me in that. Thank you, Mr. Monarch. That's very kind. And yeah, man. No, hey, all right, West Coast says King Fabers unite. And Ed says the King Kayfaber is taking out the toys. Absolutely, man.
I gotta thank West Coast Dave Vengers for sending me that Aliens miniseries that Richard Corbin drew. I didn't know about that. I mentioned it on the show, and then he priority mailed some shit my way, man. So thanks so much, dude.
That's awesome, man. That's great that they're sending you stuff. And then do you guys do shows?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like we did this one episode not too long ago. And it's no hyperbole. The title of the episode is something like the greatest book we own, or the greatest book we ever saw. And this dude put together his own custom leather bound Miracle Man book that he sort of produced completely himself. Yeah. It's better than anything that Eclipse or Marvel ever put out. It's 1,000 pages. Optic. Let me just find it. I got to get that guy props, man, because like you gotta see this stuff. It's Optic. Maybe it's Optic press binding, I think. Let me just do it quick.
I do know that there were and probably still are those custom binders that will take somebody's run and make a beautiful hardback version of it. I think that's great. West Coast says it is Optics binding.
Optics binding, yeah, man. That guy's a freaking artist. So yeah, I mean, we get people send us stuff very randomly, and often enough we catch some stuff that's like, okay, this is going to be an episode next week. This will be an episode next week, and sometimes we get a real good mail week where there might be 3-4 episodes that we do the following week from just stuff that we got in the mailbag, right then and there.
Well, based on your success with the omnibus and the pre-sales that you're doing, I'm sure I'm going to show images that people are likely already aware of. But one thing I am curious about, and this sequence that is in, it looks like Spanish, I believe.
No, that looks like French to me.
You see, I was going to say, and thank you, Ed. How many different languages is hip hop in?
I think it's like 13 or 14 at this point.
That's great, man. That's so great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's amazing. That's outstanding. And again, here, let's great. Here, I love this great group shot of many of your depictions of some of the all-stars here of hip hop.
Oh yeah, man! I sold that piece at Sotheby's in 2020.
Wow, good for you, man! Jesus Christ! I want to know, Ed. Are you a paper ink person? Are you digital? Are you both? How do you do it?
I will do the roughs on the iPad. So I call it creating bulletproof thumbnails or creating bulletproof roughs. And the beauty of using Procreate on the iPad and the Apple Pencil is that you could move stuff a millimeter away from the panel borders. You could increase the sizes of things. You could mess around with camera angles in terms of, you draw something and then, what does it look like if I blow up, push the camera in closer to the characters, or how about if I push it back? So it gives you so much latitude to screw around with the compositional part, but I don't like to fuss around with that very, very much. I'll do the wireframes for my characters, and in Procreate, there's a great tool for perspective to kind of create a drawing guide. So like I'll draw my characters, or maybe I'll do the perspective guide first. So 3 sets of lines, set up the 2-point perspective, boom, set going to this vanishing point, set going to that vanishing point, and then lines going up and down. Now I have a picture plane, and I can orient my characters within that picture plane, and then just print it up in very light blue. And lately, I've not even really been penciling beyond that. I've just been going straight to ink. This shit right here. This isn't a green screen behind me. You know what I'm saying, man? Like, I just drew some stuff this morning, and I'm trying on this path. Like, I have this idea in mind of just kind of compulsive comic book making. So the best way to do that is daily strip, right? Like those daily strip cartoonists, complete compulsive comic book makers, and over here, I just have complete bodies of work from Charles Schultz. There's Chicago's own Chester Gould, and Milt Caniff is down here. Below that, I got about 17 volumes of Hal Foster's Prince Valiant. Like I'm super. For years, I've been super into the daily strips, and finally, I'm like, what? I just want to invest my time into trying that out. So I'm really hitting it hard, and there's not much room for fucking off. Like there's no room to draw the same strip twice, which is what happens when you do tight pencils. So it's like, capture some of that energy that you get in your roughs by just going straight ink. I have these very energetic pages in my sketchbooks, and it's because I wasn't being so precious, and I was allowing the lines to be a little bit more organic. Well, maybe let people see what that looks like, and maybe develop that into a style. So that's what I've been working on for the past 6 months or so. I just finished strip 91. I wanted to have 100 done before I start serializing these strips on my social media on January 1st of 2024. So I'm going to, utilize that scroll that's on Instagram, on both the Kayfabe Insta and my own, put up strips on Facebook, Twitter, maybe grab a Line Webtoon account. And then also maybe like once a week, maybe every Saturday, just do a reading of the strips, of the previous week's strips, and then make a video on Kayfabe and put it up there. Just do everything I can to kind of signal boost it, because I kind of want to make it as successful as possible, because I want to see what it's like. Like, let's have a new daily strip where the cartoonist actually is very rigorous and putting in that amount of effort that the golden age comic strip artists did, because it's just, strips are not like that anymore. They are very dashed out.
I'm with you, man. No, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you love the classic guys like Kniff and Alex Raymond and people like that, and how they did it. Did you read a couple years ago, John Cullen Murphy's son put out that book? Oh, you did read it about that.
No. I have it. Once again, thanks to the Kayfabe audience, man, because they sent it my way. I did not know about it. But what a mythic little town in Connecticut, huh?
Yes.
That just like all these extremely wealthy freaking comic strip artists who there was one period of time where Charles Schultz was the richest celebrity, bar none. Hollywood, sports, Charles Schultz was the dude. And the comic strip artists who were able to license those damn characters, they did very, very well for themselves.
Oh, that was the rock star job. That's what the comic book people aspired to, was
right.
Getting a syndicated strip. Well, and even more so, another book I'm curious if you've read is that book that Dennis Kitchen co-wrote about Al Cap. And Al Cap, like Charles Schultz, was this national celebrity. And then we found out what a fucker he was in terms of literally a sexual predator.
Right.
And, but this guy had the nation by the balls doing Little Abner and really like speaking to the people with these really interesting parodies. And he's horrific in the same way Bill Cosby is, but I can't deny I'm really interested in learning more and more about him. Christ, they even made albums of him when he would do his college lectures and stuff.
Right.
And I've found radio shows or when he's on Dick Cavett, and he was Charles Schultz, but not afraid to be out in the public and really kind of expose his personality.
Yeah, totally, man. Whenever maybe the second volume of Hip Hop Family Tree, maybe the first, there were 2 years in a row I went to Miami Book Festival. And one of those years I was on a dais on a panel with Dennis Kitchen while he was promoting that book. So it was a revelation to me, the stuff that he was saying on that panel, and I just couldn't believe it, because I knew Al Cap was an asshole, because of Frazetta. Like because Frazetta worked for him, and that's two giant egos. It's an unstoppable force and immovable object working together. So I know the Frazetta stories about Al Cap, but that's another macho dude. It's not 20-year-old girls and shit like that. So like when you incorporate that into the mixture, it gets real dicey. But what I will say about the work though is that because like just this past year I grabbed about 20 volumes of the kitchen sink reprints in paperback, and my to read pile it's a rack, like a couple of magazine racks full of comic strip reprints. Like whenever I'm done with kayfabe homeworks, like that's the stuff I read. And Lil Abner starts in 1931, I believe, and so that's 7 years before Action Comics,
right?
And it is such a good strip from strip one, and it's so much better than any comics that were done probably up until maybe Carl Barks and John Stanley, maybe in the 40s and 50s. It was far beyond the stuff that was done in comic books. One thing that I am curious about, because we all know the legend of Siegel and Schuster and how they were designing Superman as like a pitch for a daily strip.
Yes.
Well, after it became a phenomenon in Action Comics at National or whatever the company was called at that time,
right,
it got that treatment. It got to be a daily strip and it got to be a Sunday strip. I seen those reprint collections out there, and I'm like, okay, well, now it is in the newspaper. So I wonder if that's any good, because you never hear anybody talk about it.
I hear what you're saying.
Well, so I'm interested in investigating.
A lot of the stories were adapted for DC monthlies and vice versa. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, and it was interesting too that Wade had a lot of those strips and those IDW reprints of the Superman daily strips and Sunday strips. I know Mark Wade had a lot of those, and did. It's funny. I just talked to Mark. I should ask him about this. We're gonna do a Christmas show about Silver Bells and Silver Age comics. That's the Christmas idea that we both came up with. But yeah, it's funny. I agree with Cycle Cleveland, who says, yeah, Al Cap took it upon himself to insult John Lennon and Yoko during their bed-ins. Absolutely. You can find that footage, which is ridiculous. But Cap went from being this liberal, and then the whole 60s free love and the hippie movements really offended him. And then he became this arch conservative. It's like
it's fascinating, man, because like we have pop culture examples. That's Don Draper, Mad Men, or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The Tarantino flick has that energy, and it's an interesting point of view where there's such a visible cultural shift from these like Eisenhower squares to the young boomers,
right.
Like those Eisenhower squares, they all killed people when they were 18 years old overseas and shit like that. So they had their own baggage, and all that they wanted in the universe was like order, peace.
Yeah, you can get that.
Quietness.
Sure.
Like, and then their kids, man, who don't have any of the baggage that they had, fucking wilding out, man. And it's natural to rebel.
Yes.
So when you're such a stodgy, Peckerwood, like of course your kids are gonna go run off and take some of that MK Ultra acid and see visions and shit like that. It makes perfect sense.
100%, man.
And it's all cyclical too. Like I remember reading years and years ago, and it really does seem to bear out that there are like the cycles of generations. It's like a cycle of four, like 4 generation cycle that kind of like just churns itself.
Oh yeah,
over and over again. So I think we're getting out of like the neo hippie kind of stuff, and I sort of feel like that's my comics are for the kids of the neo hippies who are going to want to upset and disappoint their millennial moms and dads.
Well,
so I'm not really doing comics like Red Room and stuff. It's not for somebody who's going to buy it right now, but there's going to be a kid who's going to happen upon that stuff, and it's going to be like, okay, yeah, like this will really make my wussy ass crybaby parents really upset.
You're killing me, man. I hear you. And see, I'm right between the boomers and Gen X because I was 1964.
Yeah.
So that's 20 years after World War II. But Gen Xers, it's like, well, again, being born in 64 and somebody that was born in like 78 or 79, it's like, I mean, we have a lot in common, and I have a lot in common with the boomers too. But I really feel like I'm in a different, age demographic. And in fact, I've seen it referred to as keeping up with the Joneses.
That's your generation?
That's my generation. And I'm like, all right, 'cause again, I'm like too young to be a boomer, too old to be Gen X and everything. And it's, again, we have a lot in common. But yeah, I mean, there are parts of me that relate more to the boomers and parts of me that relate more to the Gen Xers and stuff. But no, you're absolutely right. And dude, I'm late 50s, so I'm like, I don't know. I was a little worried that I stopped watching the Grammys because I didn't give a shit about the music that was being celebrated. And I'm like, hey, something, that's what happens, man, especially with pop music and stuff. The page turns, and that's okay. And the kids deserve their own music and their own movement and everything. And it's like, run, children, run. God bless you. So,
yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, I know. I hear you, man. Oh, that's funny. Mike Jones says being a Jones is overrated. All right. Now you mentioned Red Room, and I was going to go to that. Here it is. Cycle Cleveland, will the Red Room omnibus include ink with the blood of an actual Red Room victim?
That's very Gene Simmons
Yes.
of him to ask, right?
Also, God, I don't think we talked about this the last time we talked about Red Room, but there's also here's another great past cartoonist that had a weird career. Was it Jack Schick that would make those little religious pamphlet you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Jack T. Chick, man, the Chick tracts. Those are probably the most popular comics that ever existed, and people want to split hairs about that. Like we made that claim on the channel, and people wanted to split hairs and say stuff like, well, it's not like we asked to get those comics in the laundromat and shit like that. Well, it's like, well, guess what, douchebag? There's still hundreds of millions of them shits out there.
Ed, if I've never told you, I used to be a bank teller, and we couldn't even identify the customer. We would come in, and those pneumatic tube things
Yes.
you drive through?
Yes.
Instead of getting a deposit or a check to get cash back or stuff, we'd get a Jack Chick comic and stuff. And they'd be like, Suntress, you like comics here. And I'm like, yeah, but not these. You're going to hell.
Well, it's funny you say that, man, because I just look over there at my little box that has about 70 or 80 of those Chick tracts that I found throughout my lifetime.
Were you thinking that with the format of Red Room at all? Because I see a kinship, at least formatically, with that. I don't. Again, that's where my mind went.
Yeah, no, but that's an interesting notion. Like you just, I sort of wrapped it up, but I leave it open. I can make more Red Room comics in the future, but not like you just put something into my mind that the gears are running, and it's like, oh my goodness, like evangelizing people on the Red Room by way of a Chick tract type Red Room comic like that's freaking amazing.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I almost want to hit everybody with that little Men in Black flashlight, and then cut this section out of the conversation so that I could just keep that.
If you do that, just put me in the acknowledgments. Suntress made me think of this. This is good. I'll appreciate that, man. No, dude, seriously, man, this is why I look forward to talking to you, is the tangents and the stuff that we can talk about. So that's fantastic. All right, some people are asking excellent questions, and I want to get to them here. Let's see. Oh, first of all, Ryan Cheshire wants to know, is that a new desk? The last couple streams, it looked like a standing desk.
Yeah, for sure, man. Got a little standing desk, and been going pretty hard with the exercises. So, but below the standing desk is the treadmill. And when I wake up, 5 a.m., go right to the treadmill, do an hour's worth of walking at 8 kilometers per that hour, and then hour before I sort of powder out, like I'll draw till about 6 p.m. and then do another hour walk on the treadmill if it's rainy out. If it's nice out, I'll hit the streets and catch a little sunlight. But yeah, it's been working out, man, and doing the stand, doing the sit, throughout the day has been it's been a very healthy month and a half, 2 months this past summer, man, because I was feeling like I was again a little lazy, so I had to just take care of that.
There you go. Cleveland says standing treadmill is great. Got to keep in shape. Charles Burns, 68, looking strong. Absolutely. Someone asked me if my background is inspired by The Matrix or Larry King. Well, you can see in the upper corner there. God, who did that for me? I'm trying to remember. I think Tim Seeley drew that for me. Or no, it was Franco from Art and Franco, Tiny Titans. And yeah, man, we went for the Larry King thing. So there you go. But here we go. West Coast Dave says, I'll say Ed always advocates for health, and it's really important to hear that. Indeed, as a fat man, I appreciate what Ed is advocating. So I completely agree with that. Let's see here. Here we go. Wes Griff 1. What book or books, Ed, would you like to see come back into print the most?
Off the top of the head, how about those giant size, nearly artist edition, like Jeff Darrow books, the black and white hard boiled that just shows off all the art, the oversized black and white Big Eye Rusty the Boy Robot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like those things came and went, and I remember seeing them on. Well, I didn't know that the Big Guy and Rusty one existed, but I saw the hard boiled one, and I think it might have cost $40 cover price when it first came out, and the store was selling it for $60 because it went out of print really fast. And $60 when I was a kid, it might as well have been $6,000. Like there was no way I was ever gonna be able to buy a $60 book. So bring those back in print.
I worry about that in general, Ed, with the mainstream DC and Marvel, and just the price point for a 20-page book. And it's like, I don't know, man, $5 for a 20-page book. I'm not feeling it. And
no, not at all, man. And especially for like how little they just don't consider the format at all. So like we can blame the price on administration and just cost of paper, whatever. But we have to blame the creatives for giving a slight product. So like I think there's a way to sell a $5 pamphlet comic and have it be something that you could enjoy and not feel ripped off.
Well, I blame the companies more than the creators. I do think that when the creators have their own destiny in their own hands, like what you and Jim do, the Image people and stuff, that they do give you more for that monthly comic, and a lot of times more than 20 pages, back matter and other things like that. So I at least, and also at a more affordable price point.
Yeah, but I mean, we have a long history of mainstream comics and stuff like the Stan and Jack stuff. Like each issue is a complete thought and a complete episode, and feels very satisfying. And that does not exist. And that abuse of the audience, forcing people to pay $35 over the course of 6 months to read a story, like that is not all that compelling.
I'm with you.
Good luck. Like we get the comic book industry that we deserve. So it's real fun just enjoying our own cottage industries of our own. Jimmy's a king of his own fiefdom. I'm a king of my fiefdom. Tom Scioli just put out a Kickstarter, and that's doing super well. He put it out today, and he probably got at least half the loot that he needs to print the thing. Like me and my friends, we have our own fiefdoms. Like if mainstream goes away, we set up cartoonist kayfabe to protect ourselves, man. To keep an audience and to like let people know what we have going on, because I don't know, like I don't want to put my fate into the hands of like Marvel and DC, because like when that shit goes away, we're still going to be making comics.
So true, Ed. Truly, the last 25 years have really been impressive. That the DIY comics of creator-owned people have really found their way alongside the DC and Marvel fare. And that's great, because truly, as DC and Marvel get into TV and film, that's a lot easier for kids to get into their intellectual properties than buying a $5 comic. And I really wonder what the future is for printed comics from DC and Marvel. And the good news is people like yourself, You guys are making your own books, making them your own way, and that's wonderful. Michael, great comment. Kayfabe introduced me to the world of artists and artisan editions. Needless to say, I've never looked back. And yeah, I mean, right now, my taste, especially being an old fart, it's hand in hand with the DC and Marvel stuff. But it really was exciting to come back to comics as I did in the late 90s, discover guys like David Lapham and Stray Toasters, alongside the Ruckas and the Brewbakers and the Bennises that were taking, Marvel properties or DC properties, putting their spin on them too. And look where those guys have gone. I mean, even Bendis has just walked away in the last year or two from DC. Is at Dark Horse doing his own thing. Ed and Sean Phillips are killing it with their graphic novels. Rucka's doing his own thing at Image with his various comics and stuff that he does with Nicholas Scott and Michael. Gotham Knights. Alias. Bendis' artist on Alias, and right now
I can't help you on that stuff.
Michael, I'm sorry. Apologies, Michael. Should you hear or watch this? But no, I think it's great, man. Christ, I saw the news that Matt Wagner and Kelly Jones are doing a new Dracula. I saw that today. I've already contacted them. I'm like, guys, you got to come on the show. No,
I'm really stoked about that project.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see the people that lived in mainstream for so long. Jeff Johns now doing creator-owned stuff, and it's like, okay, you guys always really had your finger on, what made mainstream, DC and Marvel stuff work. Can you bring your own ideas? Wade, alongside his great work at DC, and even that time when he wasn't part of DC and was doing Marvel stuff, Christ, Potter's Field was a really interesting thing. Irredeemable was really interesting from Boom. So, I'm glad their ideas were finding other places,
it's an interesting phenomenon that is sort of happening in comics, because all the stuff that you just rattled off, there was the old tried and true kind of philosophy or system of working within the comics, the mainstream kind of comics business, which would be starting with the dawn of Image, you get a big Willie name in corporate properties, Spider-Man or X-Men, whatever, and then you go off and do your own thing, and then you bring a small portion of that audience to your self-published stuff or to your own independent works. And because you own it, which is priceless, by the way, you can sell fewer and you could benefit more by doing it that way. And that model has proven tried and true.
Absolutely.
Pretty much up to this date, of course. But the new kind of wrinkle over the past decade has been that crowdfunder thing, where you can make a big Willie name for yourself in the corporate stuff, and then have complete agency over every component piece, which is a very enticing idea, man, because no matter which publisher you're going with, you're still just another horse in the stable, and you don't have, endless contact, and nothing is ever exactly what you want. So that gives you that freedom to make it exactly what you want. And you benefit 100% from that. There are issues with that, in that you got to hit your marks. So you have to be more of a self-starter. And then there's that fulfillment component.
Yes.
That is the scary part. That seems very, very nerve-wracking. And I cut my teeth on that stuff. Now, like when I was doing WYSIWYG at the beginning, there were 3 self-published volumes, and I would get some good promotion online. Like I had a very specific audience in mind, and the people that I imagined would be readers of that, they did promote those comics to their audience that really respected their opinions. So when an article would come out on boingboing.net, or when the earliest podcasts, they were tech podcasts, were the most popular first podcast. It wasn't, It was very kind of lo-fi and unprofessional, but they had giant audiences. And those guys would talk about it. I could make $10,000 overnight back then. And that was during that, 2008 economic collapse, subprime mortgage, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. So from my mom's basement, which is where I was like warehousing all these shits, man, I sold around 30,000 comics
That's amazing.
from my mom's basement over the course of 3 years.
Well,
And,
go ahead. Excuse me.
no, go ahead, man.
I was going to say, Kirkman, his manifesto that was, I want to say 2009, where he's like, hey, everybody, stop giving your ideas to Marvel and DC. Make
Yeah.
your own shit. And,
Right.
and here we are 14 years later, man, and it's absolutely true.
Yeah, that was a very privileged position and privileged thing for him to say.
True, but, go on.
Yeah, like it's nice to be at the top and to be talking smack like that, and maybe I'm even guilty of that to a certain extent at certain times.
But you weren't when you were doing WYSIWYG. I mean,
That's true.
That's the thing. You made your book. You created your own community. You sold your book. We were talking about Artie, and forgive me, I don't even remember who was on the air or off the air with Crybabies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, honestly, I don't know if you had a chance when you saw Artie recently in Baltimore, but the next time you see him at a con, Artie's not even Artie, alongside the various publishers that he's working with, is also with a bunch of his comics, just putting them out himself and selling them at shows. And that's all they're doing, And again, Artie's got the rep now. And it took, Artie's been in the game for almost 30 years now, if not more than 30 years. But yeah, it's, I really think if you stick with it and you believe in yourself and it's a marathon, but I always say with Word Balloon, I'm Johnny Appleseed, one listener at a time.
Oh yeah, totally, man. Don't take that for granted whatsoever, because that's you start getting into your own head too much, and you start believing your own hype, and that's never a good recipe, man. Like there's a lot of cautionary tales of comics where the cartoonists start to believe their own hypes and stuff. But to finish the thought with that WYSIWYG stuff and selling 30,000 comics, like that was an all day thing. So in the morning, that's like packing envelopes. And I was living in the south side of Pittsburgh at the time. And I would have to, so it's a city, and I would walk by this place called Commonwealth Press, and they would have they had a t-shirt business. And every day they would have a wheelbarrow full of envelopes to take to the post office. And I would have like 2 garbage bags full of WYSIWYGs. And so when they would see me coming from a distance, I'd see them pull out their wheelbarrow, and we were basically running to try to be in front of the other person at the post office. So that's how my day is spent. And then my night is spent making the next round of pages over the course of a year to generate the next book. And as far as because you up front, you were like, is that Kickstarted? Is that crowdfunded? And the thing is, I'm putting that off. So the thought in mind now is, while there's still some kind of a business in comics, there's still distribution, and there's still these very generous people who decide to have comic book publishing companies and stuff. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to use their expertise and be 100% creative with my life, and try to build the biggest audience possible while these venues still exist.
I'm with you.
And when they're toast, and when Steve Jeppy wants to cash in his chips, or however this is all going to shake out, then it's we have the headquarters of kayfabe, social media, our own personal outreach. And then after, the final publisher, we put the tombstone on their grave. Then it's all right, I guess crowdfund is the way to go at this point.
I'm with you, man. I'm absolutely with you. Wes Griff, great one question. He said, you once said in a kayfabe episode that Chester Gould is a cartoonist you have no criticism for. Can you speak more on that?
You got to allow yourself to just kind of be a fan of something. When you grow up and you dig comics, you have this kind of more pure notion, maybe. I mean, I did. I've always had comics before I could even read the English language. So I had this love for the medium, and I, as a kid, you could intuitively, a good comic, you could tell what's going on, you could follow the story. But then when you get in the game and you start making your pages, maybe the first page you make, when you start to think about the mechanics of comics, the relationship is now different. And now you're a maker, and you understand comics in a different way, and you see comics in a different way. And that takes a certain kind of a magic that was once there, that takes that away, but it replaces it with a different kind of magic, which is like, it's maker magic. It's the logic problem of trying to get somebody who's coming in cold to forget all of the stuff that I'm paying attention to and just kind of absorb story. Like that's the game that we're playing here. But I allow Chester Gold to deliver me whatever he wishes, and I have nothing to say about that. There are times I'm laughing and I'm like, "Oh, Chet, what are you doing here?" Or, "Oh, Chet, man, you really you couldn't think of a better way to get out of this one." But I enjoy it all, and I as a whole, like I got all the IDWs right there. And they replaced all of my well, that's not true. I actually have all my black thorns over there in one of these boxes right there.
Right, sure.
So that's all I mean about Chester Gold. Like, let me have one thing in comics where I'm just not critical, and I choose not to be, because first off, it's wonky as hell. So like you could tear it apart and certainly in the modern context, you could decimate it.
Yes.
But just let me have something. Let me have something that I could just enjoy.
Have you guys had Max Allan Collins on the show yet?
I really want to. I really, really, really want to speak to him because his Batman is actually my Batman. That's and from his own lips on interviews that I've seen on YouTube and stuff. He says that his run is like not celebrated and people dismiss it and stuff. And that shocked me because his Batman is my Batman. Like, I started reading Batman comics on a monthly basis from like age 5. It was the last 2 issues of year 1. The print runs must have spiked again, like around that time or something, because they were just very reliable to get at that point. And so the box is right there. Like I off the newsstand, man, starting with the last 2 issues of year 1, and then he's the new guy. Max Allan Collins is the guy right after.
That's right.
And then you get Chris Warner art, who's fucking dope,
and Dave Cockrum as well.
Cockrum, who's dope, and Max Allan Collins said that Dave Cockrum didn't like the relationship with him. I'm so glad that was invisible to me, man, because like I like those comics. And then like young Kieran Dwyer shows up. Like, these are all artists that I dig a lot, and I know those comics so well. And from that point forward, up until Batman gets the back broken, and when they try to, force me to have to read Catwoman comics or 5 titles in order to get this whole storyline, like, I was out, so, but like, they had me from age 5 to about 12.
Sure. Well, I was thinking of with Max, not only his Batman run, and really a lot of what he did, and Mystery. I love Mystery.
Yeah, me too.
But I was thinking too, the Tracy comic strip, he was the next writer after Chet Gould, and Chet Gould was one of his heroes, and he really got to know Gould, in his later years, and was working with Dick Locher, the artist that eventually succeeded Chester Gould and everything. No, and I mean that I especially living in Chicago, the Tribune, was kind of the home of Dick Tracy. So yeah, I mean, I was hip to Max in the 70s, and literally, man, one of my very first word balloons was talking to Max, and God, he was just down with my buddy Rob Burnett on Rob's YouTube show. And I kind of bugged both of them, and I'm like, because they're going to do his Nathan Heller detective novels. They're going to make audio dramas adapting his books. That's fun. I love old time radio, and I love new audio drama as well. So I'm really excited. So hopefully I'll be talking to Max, and when I do, I'll definitely put the bug in his ear that he should be talking to you and Jim.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. Because the Chester Gould connection is obvious and would be interesting. But he also ghost wrote those last rounds of Mickey Spillane, Mike Hammers.
Correct.
And I'm a giant Mike Hammer dude. When Sin City was coming out, when I was just kind of entering my teen years, which is like the perfect time to be reading Sin Cities.
Sure.
And in those pages of Wizard magazine, there would be, man, every like 6 months there would be a Frank Miller interview. It felt like, and Frank Miller would be dropping the gems. You know, he would mention, you know, Charles Willeford and Elmore Leonard and Mickey Spillane, like these names that I can now seek out. And I did not have much interaction with comic shops until I was about 12, 13. And before that, there was just there was a bookstore, a proper bookstore, paperbacks mostly, called Alpha Used Books in Homestead, and that's where I would get like my old back issues and things. But when I started seeing those names, like I would just write them down, take it to the little old dude at Alpha Used Books, and just come out with stacks of Mike Hammer paperbacks, stacks of old Elmore Leonards. You know, I was less interested in the westerns, more interested in, you know, the rum punch type era.
Yeah.
And so just developed my, you know, paperback interest and taste that way. And then the fact that like Max Allan Collins is there. So I'm seeing Max Allan Collins in the newspapers, writing the Dick Tracy joint. I'm seeing him writing the Batman. And now he's ghostwriting the new Mike Hammer stuff. I'm like, this dude, who the heck? He's Forrest Gump. You know what I'm saying? Like he's everywhere. Like he was like my favorite writer at a certain point.
I'm with you, man. Oh, this is nice. First of all, thank you, Jesse. Jesse says I've been on fire with the guests I've had lately. Well, it's because guys like Ed are willing to come back and talk to me. Michael says I'm from Dundee, Scotland, which has a massive comics tradition. The Beano, the Dandy, the Bruins, or Wooly, Commando. Maybe one day we can get Kayfabe over to explore Dundee's comic history. Is that an area that you guys would like to explore? How much international comics do you guys get into?
Well, we're big manga heads at this point, so the Japanese stuff we are super interested in, and that's a dicey set of comics to be looking at on the tubes, because they're the most popular comics in the universe. They don't need our help, and the Japanese copyright law is different than the States. Like the States, the publishers here, they see us as almost like a Twitch, you know,
right.
as like Twitch is to video games, like we are to comics, but Japan doesn't need our help to show off the interior pages of their comics and stuff. So we have to be careful with how we present manga. And you know, Heavy Metal introduced us to certain European creators that we're super excited about. And every now and then we show off some of that stuff, but then we just get very, very nervous about the international at a certain level, because like we just have to produce those kinds of shows a little differently for those copyright reasons. You know, like we've put almost 5 years of work into this channel, and we're not looking for those copyright strikes and having the channel taken away from us or anything like that. But so like the person who asked the question, talking about the Beano and all that stuff, like that's something I don't know too much about. So what I'm going to do first is go to my World Encyclopedia of Comics, you know, my Maurice Horn book, and read about it. And then now I'm going down a rabbit hole before bed in my own sort of private studies, and then see what I have on tap.
I hear you, man. No, I respect that. You know, and we're coming to an hour. Are you okay to talk a little bit longer? I don't want to keep you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, no sweat, man.
Because I wanted to know too. I love when you guys break down old Wizard issues and things like that. Have you guys ever done that with the Comics Interview magazine that David Anthony Kraft used to put out? It was at that same time that Amazing Heroes was doing their stuff. And I mean, dude, I was reading that stuff when it was brand new. And that's the kind of stuff I look for in dollar bins,
right,
et cetera, because I kind of feel like what I do with Word Balloon in an audio and video way is kind of what they were doing in the magazines, and letting you guys pontificate and just explain your process and what's on your mind and stuff. And that's the vibe I'm going for. And I'm so bummed that I didn't have the opportunity to ever talk to David Anthony Kraft, who made Comics Interview, because he was a great Marvel writer as well. Yeah. But man, I loved that magazine, and I loved Amazing Heroes. And I always, Wade and Busick are guys that when I see them, I'm always like, man, I love your comics. But when you guys were writing for Amazing Heroes, I hung on every word.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love all that stuff, and I scooped those up in the dollar bins and all that sort of stuff. Also, you know, I have a digital archive of all of that material, which we will use if needs be. And we have made a couple of episodes that came straight from Comics Interview. It was very specific stuff. It wasn't whole issues. So we looked at a very interesting interview that Frank Miller did while in the process of making Ronin. So Ronin is not released yet, and he's shot out of a cannon, just full of creative energy, talking about what he is doing, and it was a very inspiring conversation to talk about and unpack, because he's talking about things that are still flaws in the mainstream. Another interview that we pulled to make an episode about very early on, probably within the first year of Cartoonist Kayfabe, was an Eastman and Laird conversation. That those guys, I mean, that's the American dream. Jim and I are very, very happy and thrilled that we have about 4 hours of Eastman and Laird on Cartoonist Kayfabe, like reuniting those guys and going through, half a dozen issues of Ninja Turtles with them. Like that's a dream come true. And before having access to those fellas, I hung on their every word. Like I would look for any interviews or anything that they were talking about, and I looked up to those guys so much. And I like Comics Interview, but as a maker of comics, I have to hold Comics Interview at a little bit of a distance, because for my taste, it's disappointing a lot, because they have Frank Miller in the midst. Now the Ronin piece, first off, it was an earlier issue when David Allen Kraft had more hands on the comic, because he opens it up and then it's more people later. But so the early issues are unassailable. Okay. But in the 1986 issues, because I think it might have started around 81, 82, right? Like pretty something early. Like
yeah.
When we get to 86, and now there's more Bubba's hands in the kitchen or whatever. Now you have Alan Moore in the midst of making Watchmen, right, and you have Frank Miller in the midst of Dark Knight Returns, and the questions you're asking are fanboy bullshit, and you have this amazing opportunity that is squandered because you give a shit about characters rather than process, and that's fine.
I'm with you.
I'm not a fanboy at that level. I don't bitch. Like, we're just having a conversation here, right?
Yeah.
I don't bitch. What I try to do is make the thing that I want, which is Cartoonist Kayfabe. You see what I'm saying, man? Like I have to interview the people because I know the questions that need to be asked.
Sure.
At a creative level.
Ed, this is, again, I honestly say this. I would say this to you and Jim off there, and I'm sure I have. There's no jealousy at all, because we all have different approaches of how we do this. And the fact that you and Jim are comic book makers, you are going to ask much different process questions than, Jimmy Old Man over here is doing with his some of his fanboy shit. And I'm very comfortable with my interviews, and I feel no competition when it comes to the way you guys do it. And I'm so glad that you guys are there, because we need vital content and exploration of comics the way you guys do it, and who better? I mean, truly. So I love what you guys do, and I have tremendous respect. Sometimes I avoid things because I don't want to be influenced and be like, oh, you Ed and Jim talked about whatever to a guest or whatever. There's a couple other shows like that. Dave Harper and his sketch show, I think, has a different perspective. And Tim Seeley told me this years ago when he was making Hack Slash, he stayed away from watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because he's like, it's different a little, but really it's another Monster Hunter. And he's like, I just don't want to be influenced by it when I'm making my own shit. I get that. I so get that.
Yeah, I'm that way when it comes to the comics making stuff. Like if there's a genre that I want to play with at some point, I have certain rules about that, and usually it's about my contemporaries. Like I don't want to see what my contemporaries are up to, but I'll read E.C. Segar, Popeye comics, even though it covers this ground or something, because why not see what the guys who were forming the language, how they tackle it, rather than a series of derivatives, or just I don't want to see what my contemporaries are doing at that level.
Yeah.
For those exact reasons, really.
Backup wants to know, are there books you would want to return to for kayfabe? He loved your Dark Knight Returns videos. Would love to see it again in the way that you shoot your videos now. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, totally. And for those exact reasons, like we never, when we first explored Dark Knight Returns, like we were new to the game, and we didn't know how comfortable anybody was going to be with us, like looking through comics or anything like that. And clearly, like at this point, we sell comics. The stuff like right now today, we put out a video for Gilbert Hernandez Julio's Day hardcover, and I just for fun, I checked on Amazon, and it was in the number 4 slot. Julio's Day was never up that high. It's one of the best comics Gilbert ever made. It's one of the best Fantagraphics comics, and it was, you never seen it in the top 10 because it's not meritocracy. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a popularity contest or whatever. And I've been talking to the fellas, and my thoughts very specifically were like, yeah, we haven't done the microscope view, as we call it, where the camera's pointing down and you're looking at the pages.
Yeah.
For Dark Knight Returns, and that's a perennial book. That's a book that people read every year. Like you yourself might read it, once every 365 days. So maybe every 5 years we dust it off, and it's been 5 years. So I'm actually interested in checking it out again, because we've got 5 years more accumulated knowledge and information. Every time I read Dark Knight, I notice something different. So might notice something different this next go around.
Absolutely, man. I am so with you on that. Let's see. First of all, Trevor says one of his favorite videos was the Watchmen video you did with Dave Gibbons, one of my favorite people in the world. And
that was incredible. That was incredible, man. Like all shouts to Jimmy. We were doing one issue of Watchmen. We started in January of whatever year that was, and once a month we did a Watchmen issue, and just randomly, it was very close to New Year's. But just randomly, Jimmy was like, we should see if we could get Dave Gibbons. We already did the Dave Gibbons shoot interview. And he's like, we should see if we could get Dave Gibbons. And I'm like, I'm on it immediately. Like when Jimmy sent me that text, made so much perfect sense. And I think probably within 3 hours, because we have a little time delay, time difference.
Oh, sure.
Across the pond and stuff.
Certainly.
So it was a go, and we saved it for midnight on New Year's, which was very poetic. And when we did it, and we finished, because like we had to buy new technology, we bought a document camera, and
wow.
had to, so we have like 2 cameras running into this one laptop, and it's actually a different document camera than we have now, because it was so quick, the turnaround that this thing had to happen, that we didn't get too much time to practice with that other cam, and that cam sucked. So we got a good one now. But when we were done with that conversation, usually the first thing that happens is we pull out all the fucking wires out of the computer, because the audio is tied to like this microphone, and you might not be able to hear, like if you play a video on the audio gets weird. So pull out every fucking wire and just hit play on the raw footage to make sure we got it.
Oh,
like, did we get it?
Yes.
And we got it. And the sense of relief, it's this build up, and you're doing the whole conversation. You're doing the whole episode with the guy. You see OBS is recording, but is it? So that's the baggage that's in the back of your mind. You're freaking out, and you're trying to play it cool. And we're spinning plates, it is not effortless. It is not effortless doing those things. And we pull out all the wires and we listen, and we're like, oh my goodness, such a relief. Same thing with the first time when we got Eastman and Laird back together. One of the things that we do is for the people on our Patreon, and this may have been pre-Patreon, it might have been post-Patreon, but we have a stream that we put up that we let all of our biggest supporters on Patreon, hang out with us while we're recording the week's episodes. And if the King K-Faber is at that level, watch that stream. And even in the chat room, whenever we were getting prepared to record that episode with Eastman and Laird, I am sick that morning. The stress of what we have to do, we have to make it good. I was like a little bit in a ball because I had such a splitting headache behind my eyes. It was just completely just a stress thing. And Jim and I talk about it often. There's so much anxiety when it comes to doing that stuff. Cause like, we're just used to being at this table. I'm not used to talking. I'm not used to certainly being on camera and being like a personality or anything like that. So every single week, we don't sleep real good the night before, and it's been 5 years. So like that Eastman and Laird time, where now I have to marry two connections, digitally up. Absolutely. And make sure that their mic levels are on par and stuff. I made myself so sick that morning. And it was that kind of like anticipatory thing too, where it's like, you wake up and you're like, I hope I'm not sick and I hope there's nothing bad that happens today. And then you just make yourself fucked up. And then at a certain point, it all just kind of worked out about 20 minutes before it was time to do Eastman and Laird. Like some adrenaline thing started happening and I was just totally fine. But man, even our biggest supporters were cold dissing, man. And we're like, man, Ed looks like shit. Like in the chat, Ed looks like crap. Oh man, is that dude sick? Like, what's his problem? And I was dying, dude.
I'm so with you, Ed. Yeah.
Oh, the stress of that. And then after we recorded those episodes with Eastman and Laird, once again, man, pull out the wires and make sure that we got it. And I think Jimmy and I think we had tears in our eyes because of like the relief that, we weren't a part of the AV team in school, like we don't know that universe.
Hey, Ed, first of all, get out of my head because everything you said, I've had those stress moments as well. But also, listen, man, I was a radio broadcaster and all of the technology was there. All I had to do was turn on my microphone for 30 years in Chicago radio. And just like, the engineers have this covered. It's fine. And you're absolutely right. Since I started this in 2005 and my upgrades in equipment, and I can't tell you, I mean, geez, my first year, have an amazing conversation with Gene Colan, doesn't record. And I have to go back to him and on kind of like, oh, Gene, I know we had this great talk last night. It didn't record. Is there any chance you would be willing to do it again? He couldn't have been nicer. And of course he did it. And he's like, oh no, I like talking to you, John. You're like Bob Costas. I really enjoyed it. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And no, believe me, I have been there as far as the stress. So I totally understand. Manny Gomez, and again, I don't want to keep you long, but Manny says all you have to do is look up the great comics coming out of the Cartoonist Kayfabe Ringside Seats group. Tell me about this. Have you got a community of new creators or something, or what's going on?
We have nothing to do with that. I don't know what that is.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, that's some unauthorized stuff.
I see, and I understand. Believe me, I understand. All right. West Coast Dave says, legit, they made history with those episodes with Eastman and Laird. Absolutely, man. So, Jesus, and C. Kim Craig K says, appreciate the late night Ed. After the strip, what's next? So yeah, you kind of hinted. Do you want to say? I mean, like you said, you're going to be doing daily strips starting in 24.
Yeah, and Craig's asking like, what's after that?
Yeah,
and I have to approach like of course I have a million ideas, but I have to approach the stuff I'm working on with such intense focus and put all of my energy into it. So I'm not really thinking ahead right now because I still have a long journey ahead of me with this daily strip because I want to do at least 365.
Sure.
To just be like, okay, I did a year's worth. But here's the thing, John, the fun that I'm having making comics at this kind of compulsive level, it's the most fun I've ever had making comics So maybe this is what I do forever.
That's correct. Maybe
It's maybe what I'm working on is thimble theater, and out from this comic comes what the real piece will be. You know, my Popeye might come out of this.
I'm with you. I'm so with you.
That's the function of the daily, I think. And you know, I want to have a massive queue of comics ready to go so that I can reliably at least have 100 that'll come out like in a row. And then I'm surely going to be working, you know, in between that and continue putting strips together. But the thing is, having that much of a lead time, which, you know, that's 3 months, three months and some change. What if something amazing gets discovered by the audience? You know, the audience leans on something that's kind of like maybe strip 20. Well, maybe you just got to kind of bank that and then change the course of what I'm working on right at that moment. You know, I might be, you know, when strip 20 comes out, I might be on strip 160. And maybe I got to change course with that in mind. Or maybe you just stay the course and, you know, stay true to yourself. I don't know. Like the way Hip Hop Family Tree came about was it was just another strip that I did under this title called Brain Rot. It was called Ed Piskor's Brain Rot. And Hip Hop Family Tree is just a title of one of the strips within Brain Rot. So that's my own thimble theater, you know, Popeye story where like I just had this random piece of real estate.
Yeah.
Hip Hop Family Tree, like it had a subtitle to it that was like a semi-reoccurring comic strip, something or other. Because the idea was that every now and then I'll do another Hip Hop Family Tree thing because it took a lot of work and I had nothing banked. So I had no weeks banked. And it took all 7 days to like produce that strip for the next Tuesday. And the comic, I believed in it so much, I put out 3 pages to start. And what I would usually do is put the strips live up to that point with Hip Hop Family Tree. Like I did 12 strips prior to that. So I did 3 months worth of strips that had dubious attention. It would, you know, maybe something would hit a little bit,
sure,
but nothing too much. And when I finished the Hip Hop Family Tree strip, the first one, I put it live, and then I purposely like went to lunch with some friends, with Tom actually. Like we used to eat at this Chinese restaurant right around the corner from his house.
Tom Scioli.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I purposely stayed away from the net. And when I connected with them, like, man, I really hope that people like this strip because I had such a good time making this comic that I just hope that the audience kind of is receptive because that would give me an incentive to like go ahead and do another one. And back at that time, which I guess, you know, it actually would have been 2012. It was January of 2012 when I started. The first Tuesday of January is when the first one came out. I get home and social media was so much more powerful because they didn't know the information that they were given to their users for free. So like on Facebook in the search field, if you put a URL into that search field, there would be a drop down that would come down and it would say how many people shared that URL.
Yes.
And it was, after 2 hours of going live, there was tens of thousands of people shared it.
Wow.
And then there was a website that was called Topsy that you could see how many retweets a URL got. And that one got, you know, tens of thousands of retweets within 2 hours. So it immediately let me know, you know, stick with this for a little while. And then over the course of a year, people were very excited about a book and a lot of publishers came a call in. So when you get a bunch of publishers interested, then you could start asking for things. And I wanted the big book, you know, I wanted something that approaching Marvel Treasury size.
Sure.
I wanted the tactility of that old newsprint.
Yes.
And Fantagraphics just said yes to everything.
Wow.
So we generated the exact books that I wanted.
Yes.
The exact aesthetics that I wanted. and it really connected. But like by the time the first book came out, there was already a second book's worth of material completely finished. Like I waited that long to find a publisher, so it was a 1-2 punch. It was like December for book one, and then that thing sells out immediately. Like whatever financial stuff Fantagraphics was dealing with, like the print was kind of small. They sold out day one, which this is almost very close to doing.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 8 months later, volume 2 comes out. So that's the second punch.
Yeah.
And it was off to the races after that.
That's so great. Jesus. That's wonderful, man.
So I did that strip for 4.5 years, and on a weekly basis.
Right.
And to go back to Craig CK's question, what's after? Like maybe I'll do this for 4 years. So you just never know, man. It's going to be contingent and sort of reliant. I'm in business. I make my living and I put food on my table by way of comics. So I need, I'm putting the books out, I'm putting every strip out there in the same way that I did with hip hop. And the hope is that a certain percentage of that readership digs the book enough to support it. And the hope is that support system can generate the next year's worth of strips. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm going to do everything I possibly can, but the strips have to be good and the strips have to get the support of the readers.
The strips will be on the Kayfabe website.
Everything I have access to. So it's going to be on the YouTube. Like I'll literally do a reading of the week's prior strips.
Why not?
Yeah, on my Instagram, I got like 84,000 followers there. The Kayfabe Instagram has like 45,000. Of course, there's plenty of overlap between the two of followers and stuff. But there's got to be some people on the Kayfabe thing that aren't on my own personal. But then so all of our Facebooks or Twitters, like all of that stuff, just maybe try to start building a little something on Webtoon from the ground up and see if people support that. And
cool.
If they show up, cool. But if it's kind of nominal, then I'll just let that languish. Like, who gives a shit? Because it seems like manga looking stuff is really like what excels there. And that's not exactly the motif of my comic, but I'm going to give it a shot. Like it would be foolish to be prejudicial to a platform. We'll see what happens.
Do the Asian markets pick up on Hip Hop Family Tree and then what you put out there? That's great. That's wonderful.
We're gonna be so I go to Japan at least one time a year.
Oh, that's great.
This year I'm going twice. So I was there in May, and I'm actually gearing up for a trip a month from now, like November 14th. I'm going to split, and I think the weekend of say the 26th, we're releasing a version of an omnibus of sorts of Hip Hop Family Tree, where it's all of the guts of Hip Hop Family Tree in Japanese, in a Shonen Jump style collection.
Sure.
So it'll be the phone book, the paperback with the spine, and then we're doing it sort of monochromatic like the manga. So yeah, man, Manga Quest 2023. See, West Coast Dave Anders knows the deal. So there will be sequences that have say blue paper with black ink, and then there will be sequences where it would have cyan ink. And maybe two colors. So the Ben-Day dots will be a lighter value of what is the black line, what is the line art, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So that's going to be fun. I'm going to do a signing out in Tokyo.
Wow.
For that with the publisher Press Pop. I always joke and it sort of bears out. You're not a true Fantagraphics cartoonist if you don't have your Press Pop translated edition, and you got to have Press Pop action figures, because that's Chris Ware, that's Dan Clowes, that's Jim Woodring, that's Charles Burns, the big willies, man. So those Public Enemy toys that you see right there, that's Press Pop.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm zooming in. That's fantastic. Keep talking.
Right there. And then actually that's a Press Pop Jim Woodring Kaiju Soft B figure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, man.
Jesus.
So I got my Fantagraphics stripes. I also have a bald head too, just like all of the best of Fantagraphics cartoonists. If you are not Los Bros, man, those guys are in a class of their own.
I respect that. I also, this is one of my favorite panels here. Your various personas.
Yeah, man, that's the self portrait in volume 1, I believe. And then after I drew that piece, I had to retire all those outfits.
Outstanding. You're killing it, Ed. I'm seriously, man. That is so great. And truly, this is the earnest love and respect I have for the output that you're doing and what you're doing and how you're doing it. You cracked the code, and congratulations in doing that, man. You carved your own little niche in this comic book world. You're doing your own thing, and that's outstanding. So again, Tuesday and Wednesday, Hip Hop Family, boom, there you go, attaboy, putting it out there. We're zooming in. Hip Hop Family Tree, the Omnibus Edition, comes out next week. It's going to be available from Fantagraphics, and I'm really glad that Fantagraphics is still loving what you do and being a good partner in terms of letting you do it your way. That's wonderful, man.
Yeah, totally. It's a benefit of working with those guys, man. I'm super appreciative. We've been doing good business for the past 10 years, and I have nothing bad to say. But just with you, John, I feel like we've been connected for about 5.
Yeah,
and I appreciate you putting a signal boost out for my works.
Hey, man, seriously, I don't do critiques. I talk to the people who I like their work. So it's truly been a pleasure. And Rugg knows that's how I feel about him as well. And that's why, man, it's always good to talk to you, and it's always good to talk to Jimmy. And what you're doing with Cartoonist Kayfabe is just wonderful. Keep up all the great work that you're doing. And hey, man, any time. I mean, it's your PR guy Dave Hyde is the one who told me about the omnibus. But I mean, if you think of it, all you gotta do is let me know. Hey, I got something new. When you are up and running in January with the daily strip and everything, I mean, obviously we get another reason to talk again, because there's a million other things that I would love to talk to you about. You know that.
Yeah, that'd be super fun, man. And before we split, I feel like it's my duty, especially since I see so many of these questions coming in from the kayfabe audience.
Go ahead.
I think it's important because you have the connection, man. And we need to get that Alex Ross shoot interview someday. And I have no access. So if you could put the good word into the man, I think the Cartoonist Kayfabe audience would respond very kindly to letting us throw a bunch of questions his way and letting him hit some home runs.
Hey, man, no, I truly, Ed, Jim, and I talked about this actually a week ago. And it would be my pleasure to hopefully make that connection happen. I know the right people to talk to. Not only Alex, but his guy as well, and they're both really good friends. So I would imagine, here, fingers crossed, man. But no, I think it would be amazing, and I know you guys would have an incredible conversation with Alex, and I will do everything I can to make it happen.
Yeah, we know he's into fanboy things, man, from his childhood and stuff. So you could just let him know we know who Clutch Cargo is, and
Space Angel. I mean, Clutch Cargo is awesome, but the better version is Space Angel. It's the same real mouth. It's like what Conan O'Brien used to do on his talk show and everything. But yeah, man, no, the Clutch Cargo is the man. And again, Alex and I, we grew up in the same town, so no, man, we were watching the same TV shows that ran those ridiculous cartoons. If you don't know what we're talking about, everybody, look online on YouTube, Clutch Cargo. You will not be disappointed. It's insane.
We speak his language. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, man.
Absolutely, man. No, and truly, that is what I will tell Al, his art rep and everything. And yeah, that's great. Ed, as always, great pleasure talking. We'll stay in touch and have more to come. And as always, looking forward to what's the next kayfabe? Can you tease what the next episode is?
What is the next one? Okay, so we're streaming this, right? It's 9:30 Eastern Standard Time on Friday, October 13th.
You got it.
So at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on October 14th, we're going to be looking at what is possibly the greatest Charlton comic that's ever been written and drawn.
I'm going to guess, was it I'm thinking of that sci-fi one. Was it? Am I right?
You're so warm. Say it, man.
I can't think of the title. Was it? It wasn't Burn. Was it Burn? Was it or what? It was a. Was it a Aparo drawing it?
No.
Go ahead, tell us. Unless you want to tease it for people to find on their own.
The best Charlton comic. You got to check out the episode.
All right, fair enough, everybody.
If you guess it, I will tell you, man. Like I'm not doing stuff. But it is a sci-fi tale. I thought it was right on the tip of your tongue, man. Because it's obvious if I say it, so I'm not going to.
It's not Rock. That was John Byrne's robot thing.
No, but that rules. and so did Doomsday 5. But like
that's what I was thinking of was Doomsday 5. Yes, that's exactly.
That's a great comic. But no. This is more idiosyncratic. You have to be kind of more into the kayfabe wavelength, and then it'll be all super clear, man. So, it is a Denny O'Neil joint.
All right, it's a Denny. Oh. Yeah. I'm an idiot. I totally don't remember, but I know what you're talking about.
But it's a pen name he uses.
Oh yeah. And I knew that too. Yes. Man, I was so lucky. I don't know if you ever had the opportunity with Denny, you guys.
No.
And I talked to him in 2007, and then just a year or two before he passed, his son reached out to me, Larry, and it's just like, hey, you did a great interview with my dad. The poor guy was recovering from this massive car accident that he walked away from, but was kind of hurting and just like at home and had a assisted living and everything, and a nurse checking on him and everything. And he goes, he's bored out of his mind. Would you talk to him again? And I'm like, oh, Larry, I've been wanting to talk to him. And every time I did, poor Denny would have all these heart episodes like throughout the 2000s. And I would talk to people like Mike Gold, who were, always in contact with him. And I'm like, I'm thinking about asking Denny, some Denny's just, recovering from a heart attack, maybe not a good time. And I'm like, all right. And then, as always, and I'm sure it is with you guys, sometimes like, hey, you should come on the show. And then I realized, I said that 2 years ago, and the guy still hasn't been on, and it's my fault for not following up faster. So thank God I got like a couple really big conversations with him right before he passed. Oh. And I'm very regardless. I mean, even if I only had the 2007 conversation, the guy's a genius. And and also I'm sure too. They're making a Charlton Comics documentary.
I didn't know that. Is John B. Cook behind that? Because he did the Tomorrow's book. That's freaking fantastic.
I don't believe so. I met them at Terrificon, the filmmakers, and fucking documentaries. Literally a lot of how Solen Thomas was telling me the Frank Miller documentary. They've been working on that for 10 plus years. So it happens. I understand. Yeah. And it's, funding and all the right. But that is just that publisher in general is such a great story. The mob shit and everything that was going on in Derby, Connecticut. It's fascinating.
Yeah, they did their own distribution. They kept the presses running day and night.
Well, they published a lot of illegal shit because they were publishing song magazines with the lyrics in them, and they didn't have the rights to do it. And that's kind of what tripped them up and put them in jail and shit. And they didn't stop. And it's like, guys, what are you doing? Well, you see, again, and you got to appreciate a shifty publisher like Charlton and some of the shit that they were doing. So they were outlaws, man, literally in some cases. So.
You could tell too, man, because you could tell that comics were just like something extra. Got to keep the presses running at night after we handle all of our accounts and things. So especially those romance comics, they're always funny because you have the couple in embrace and they're kissing, but the color separations are so fucked up that the magenta plate is here. So the lipstick, if this is her lips, the lipstick is up here on her nose or something like that because the color plate just shifts more than a half an inch or something. And on the episode that's coming out tomorrow, Jimmy said that he has Charlton Comics where the covers are off register, super, super bad. And, you would think that they would at least try to get the cover right, but it's Charlton, baby.
Exactly. Got to put it out. Who cares? Just get it out there, man. That's awesome. Well, there you go. There's my Saturday morning viewing for tomorrow. The next cartoon is Kayfabe. That's wonderful. Way to go, Ed. Seriously, Ed. My best to Jim. And I'm going to get Jim on and we'll do a solo with Jim. I would love to have you both on sometime. But truly, as we've just done, there's so much to talk about with both of you individually that I always feel like when I have two people on, it's like unless I really know him, and I know you and Jim well enough to start doing it. When it's a first conversation or second, it's like, no, man, I want to focus on one person. It's all right. There's too much to talk about. So that's me. What can I say?
Right. At this point, he and I are so kind of attuned to filibustering for hours on end and things that it might be risky. It might accidentally turn cartoonist kayfabe-ish on word balloon.
For it. That's my man. As I always say, I'm here every episode. The sizzle comes from the guests. I am the straight man to your guys' funny men, so it's totally fine. I have no problem with that. So, but thanks, Jim. Jim. Sorry, thank you, Ed. Ed Piskor, everybody. Once again, Hip Hop Family Tree from Fantagraphics, the omnibus edition, comes out on Tuesday or Wednesday. If you're getting it from comic stores, or if you're hold on, zoom in, Johnny.
Yeah, support your comic shops if you got a good shop in town.
Yes.
If you got it put on your pull list and they're reserving you a copy, scoop it up, man. It's not the cheapest book in the universe, and you don't want to leave your trusty local comics retailer like holding the bag. Pay for what you had reserved. If you do not have a good shop in town, or you can't find a thing practically, that's when you hit your Amazons and your Barnes and Nobles and places like that, man. And very often people ask directly, because like the kayfabe audience is an audience that cares about creators more than characters, man. They're not caught up in Thanos versus Galactus or whatever.
Yeah, the horse race bullshit. I'm with
right.
you.
So I'll often field questions from the audience where they very directly ask, what benefits you most? Like which way should I buy this that would benefit you most? And the truth is, grab it at your convenience, because I make the same thing no matter what. So it's so appreciated. Like it's a very kind thing to ask, but just grab it at your convenience. And I appreciate that the audience has shown up already, man, because when those numbers came back, it was pretty exciting, because it's like, okay, well, we got to maybe start thinking about when next to reprint the thing, but cart before the horse. It may still be possible to scoop one of these up off of the racks on a Wednesday, but if you see it and you think you want it, or holiday time, you got a rap music fan in your life. The cool thing is they probably don't know about it, because like that happened a lot, where like this comes out, in somebody's Christmas stocking or whatever, and their mind's just freaking blown because they're clearly into that genre of music. Yes. And now they got like this sort of Bible to go along with it. Goes a long way as a gift.
Well, I don't even know how many history books, oral history or whatever, cover hip hop the way you do. And the fact that it is such a great reportage of the genre, but also the presentation and the art that you bring, it's the full package, man. And again, proven 10th anniversary. It's great, and I'm happy to help ring the bell for you, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, John.
Always a pleasure, buddy. Everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Ed Piskor and Hip Hop Family Tree and Red Room, and a hell of a lot more on the way. Very excited to see what is coming in 2024. Thanks for watching, everybody. More great word balloon coming in October. Until next time, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.